Okay, Chairman, we're now live and we can start the meeting, please.
Thank you. Welcome to a virtual meeting of the Major Applications Planning Committee of the London Borough of Hillingdon. This meeting is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. I'm Councillor Eddie Lavery, the Chairman of the committee and the Chairman of tonight's meeting. I think we're all experienced enough in online housekeeping. Can I just remind people to keep their mobile phones muted or on silent, and obviously we're getting a lot of feedback tonight, so can we make sure we are muted when we're not speaking? I'm going to do the attendance roll first. If you just confirm you're present when I call your name. Councillor Tuckwell.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
Councillor Duncan.
Present.
Councillor Morgan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Councillor Morse.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Present, Chairman.
Good, thank you. Councillor Melvin.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger.
Present, Chairman.
And Councillor Sansapuri.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to try the officers and see if I get lucky all the way around tonight. With two planning officers tonight, Mandeep Malhotra.
Present, Chairman.
Zainab Haj Ismail.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Head of Planning, James Roger.
I'm present, Chairman.
Democratic Services Officer and Clerk, Liz Penny.
Present, Chairman.
Legal Advisor, Glenn Egan.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Highways Officer, Alan Tilley. Now, Alan was having difficulties. I can't see him on screen at this point.
No, Chairman,
No.
I think he's dropped off again. I think he's going to keep trying.
Okay. Usual technical requirements. If any councillor leaves the meeting partway through for a lost connection, I will continue the meeting as long as I am quorum, which is 3 councillors. Any councillor who leaves the meeting obviously cannot vote on that item because you've got to have heard all of it to be able to vote. From the roll call, all members are present tonight. Can I have declarations of interest in matters coming for tonight's meeting? I think Councillor Morgan.
Councillor Morgan has a declaration, I believe.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Yes. Agenda item 9, Fairview Business Centre. I have a non-pecuniary interest in this item, so I will not be participating in the discussion, so I will be muted and the video switched off.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. The minutes of our meeting 17th of November are in your bundles. Can I just take those as agreed? And I see anyone's got any corrections for me? I'm getting some thumbs up, so that's good. We're taking the agenda as was published by the Head of Planning. There are no additional items, no withdrawn items. All items are in part 1 and therefore in public and on the YouTube record. Right. With that, I'm going to proceed to item 6, which is West London Film Studios, Springfield Road, Hayes. Zainab, I think this is the one you're going to present.
Thank you, Chairman. Bear with me while I get the presentation up. So item 6 relates to the West London Film Studio on Springfield Road, Hayes. And this is the application site outlined in red for you. These are the constraints, and the application site is entirely situated in the green belt. This application is seeking planning permission to provide a film studio with new sound stages, workshops and ancillary office accommodation as an extension to the existing West London Film Studio situated 150 metres south of the site. The application, as denoted here, is entirely in the green belt. The site, as it is fenced off from public access by palisade security fencing, and the square plot lies to the south and to the east of an industrial estate. To the west of the site is Minay Country Park, and immediately to its west is the cycle circuit for Minette Country Park. So if I just take you through the presentation. This is the site location plan. There is the existing sports ground. This is the existing West London Film Studio, which is 150 metres to the south of the site. So we have received amendments to the plans during the course of the application. The original proposal included workshop space to the rear, and this adjoined the western boundary with Minette Country Park. The application has been amended, and the building itself is situated 27 metres from Minette Country Park, and the proposal now includes a 20-metre ecology buffer, which incorporates pollution-absorbing trees. The proposal also includes a number of trees along the car parking areas, which will contribute to its biodiversity. So again, this is a superseded ground floor plan showing the workshop that previously was proposed. That is no longer included. The proposal now includes an ecology buffer of 20 metres. This is the first floor plan, which includes some office space as ancillary to the film studio. And this is the plant deck second floor plan and the roof plan. This is a walkway level plan, the elevations, existing sections, proposed sections, and a swept path analysis showing articulated vehicles entering and leaving the site. This is a swept path analysis of refuse vehicles entering and leaving the site, and a CGI of the proposed film studio. So to see it in context and to understand its relationship with Minette Country Park, you will note that this is the industrial area, and actually it's this that is the site. This is a bird's eye view of the site, another bird's eye view of the site, and the site is here. And this is showing the site within the context of the existing film studio. This is a view of the site from Minette Country Park, and this is the cycle circuit. And this is view looking east towards the industrial estate. And this is showing the site, which is this here, in the context of the existing film studio. And here's another view looking north, again in the context of the industrial estate, the cycle circuit to the west, and the site is here. And this is Springfield Road. And here are photographs of the site. So the application proposal does not fall within the exceptions outlined within paragraph 145 of the NPPF. The proposed development is an inappropriate development in the green belt, and it should not be approved except in very special circumstances. The proposal has also been identified to conflict with one of the 5 purposes of the green belt to a limited extent, in that it fails to prevent urban sprawl. However, the West London Film Studio caters for an independent and peripatetic film industry in London. It makes a significant contribution to the local economy. The proposal would allow the current operation, which is situated 150 metres to the south, to double in size and capacity. Government policy seeks sustainable economic growth, and as part of this, it attaches high importance to the creative industry, specifically film industry. There is a widely acknowledged current shortage in UK studio capacity, with strong industry support for the proposal. The proposal would deliver substantial economic benefits if implemented and occupied in full. Alternatives have been considered by the applicant, and there is no firm evidence to undermine the conclusion that there is no identifiable alternative site outside the green belt that could accommodate the scale and nature of the proposal, given its proximity to the existing studio. On the basis of high-level demand, particularly in West London, the specific requirements of the TV and film studio, the economic benefits that this proposal brings with it, particularly in the context of the current pandemic, it is considered there are very special circumstances justifying the development. This is countered to some degree by slight negative impact. However, it is considered that the proposal will have a limited impact on the openness of the Greenbelt, in that in allowing this proposal, it will not erode the Greenbelt in its entirety in this location. The impact has been mitigated to a significant extent in key views to the west, where it adjoins Minette Country Park, by the 20-metre landscaping buffer. So officers conclude that overall there is a very strong, credible economic case for the proposed expansion of the West London Film Studio at this site, and there are very special circumstances that are compelling to be given substantial weight in support of the development. In terms of its highway impact and how, at its peak, officers acknowledge that 200 employees could be working from the film studio at its busiest period, and that is only predicted to be about 20 weeks of the year. This application includes 87 car parking spaces. The report or the application is supported by a very comprehensive travel plan and a car parking management plan. The car parking management plan states that the car parking spaces will be reviewed on a weekly basis when the studio spaces are booked, and they'll be allocated according to their booking. The film studio also has an existing relationship with nearby hotels. It encourages the use of taxis, and the applicant has made a commitment to provide a minibus on demand shuttle service. So this will minimise the need for private car parking or car use when it is at its busiest. So taking into consideration all of these measures, we consider the highways impact to be minimal. So we have an addendum with this item, and if I could just run through the addendum. The first clarifies how the impact of the highways will be managed and car parking. The second point in the addendum is some amendments to condition 5. We have an amendment to condition 9. We've deleted condition 10 as this duplicates condition 6. Condition 11 has been amended for clarity. We've deleted condition 22 and condition 23 has been amended. So for reasons outlined within the report, it is recommended that planning permission is granted subject to a section 106 legal agreement and planning conditions following referrals. I'm now going to hand over the presentation to James Roger to conclude. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, so there's 2 highways slides, Zanab. Yes, if you could just stop on that one, Zanab. So I just wanted to add to Zanab's presentation to give some members some more comfort concerning this scheme. I'm sure that members of the committee are aware that Springfield Road has historically suffered from a lot of congestion. So I just wanted to, through my short speech, address, if I may, a couple of the elephants in the room. So what this plan is, it is not a plan from the applicant. This is one of the council's own plans of recent highway works. And what it in effect shows in the blue colour is where there's been footway improvements, in the hashed pink colour road resurfacing, and there are various dots to represent new street lighting. There's a mini roundabout at the southern end, and there's actually 2 zebra crossings. However, the point to note, so there's 2 points to note here, that the council's already in the past 12 months undertaken a lot of significant highway improvements to Springfield Road, but also there are some gaps in these works. And one of the significant benefits of this scheme is the Section 106 contribution would be used to effectively fund some of the remaining highway works to Springfield Road. So that goes back to the other slide. So So effectively, members will see that there's been a lot of improvements already to Springfield Road in the past 12 months, but there's sections that are either, quite put very simply, not in blue or not in the pink hatching. So if Zav, you can go back to the other slide, because that shows both sides. So the existing film studios is just above the pink hatched area at the bottom, and people walking between the studios will need to walk up, and if Zainab can hover over the application site to this point. But on the right-hand side of the road, the footway improvements haven't been completed. So in effect, one of the benefits of this, of the Section 106 contribution, is that it will enable completion of the highway works, and in a sort of holistic sense, this the completing the highway improvement works to Springfield Road will significantly mitigate what harm is caused by this proposal in a sort of transport perspective. The other point I wanted to mention to members is the status of the film industry when it comes to the special circumstances in terms of outweighing harm to the greenbelt. So if one were to consider any other type of application, be it housing, be it normal commercial office development, one was to look at decisions involving appeal inspectors, the court, the mayor, at different levels of government, you'd find a number of decisions that would not allow development in the greenbelt. But the film industry is almost unique because there's been a number of decisions in recent years where development has been allowed in the greenbelt. And I just wanted to explain in a little more detail why that's actually happening. Certainly those members that saw the virtual tour we had last week of the film studios, that would have brought home some of the unique aspects of the film industry. But in 2014, there was an appeal decision called in by the Secretary of State concerning the expansion of Pinewood Studios. And I just wanted to just quickly reference that because I think it may help give members some comfort in regard to allowing film studio development in the Greenbelt. So in short, in that particular case, it was an expansion of Pinewood Studios into the Greenbelt. It was also, that particular bit of Greenbelt was in the Colne Valley, and the inspector did say that that development conflicted with 3 of the 5 Greenbelt purposes. Members will note that this development at most conflicts with 1 of the 5 purposes. And the inspector took significant weight on the harm to the Greenbelt. But what's interesting is the material planning considerations considered to outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt. So I will just read some text in this regard from the Secretary of State's report on his own inspector's decision to allow the appeal. The Secretary of State agrees that government policy seeks sustainable economic growth, and part of this attaches high importance to the creative industries, specifically film. And the Secretary of State then further commented, in terms of the economic dimension of sustainable development, there is a strong national commitment to economic growth and support for the film industry. The Secretary of State agrees with the inspector the potential economic benefits of the proposal would contribute significantly to these national objectives. Now, so I'm not going to read out in detail from an appeal decision, but the point I really wanted to make is that a number of decision makers put significant material planning weighting on the benefits of the film industry. And actually the inspector referred to them as not just economic but cultural benefits as well, I might add. And recently the Mayor of London has allowed a decision in East London in the Greenbelt that didn't involve an appeal or the Secretary of State intervening to the extent that occurred in the Pinewood Studios, but that also required a Secretary of State referral. So the point I really wanted to make is that in allowing this development, the planning committee wouldn't be making in any way a perverse decision. You'd in fact be continuing in effect what's happened in a number of decisions regarding important expansions to the UK film industry. and your officers think that this particular development proposal falls into that category, in effect. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. I'm just about, before I open this one for debate, I think the Head of Planning did make reference to it, but members have had the opportunity to see a video presentation, which is effectively a virtual site visit last week. So that will also inform their thinking. Glenn, did you want to come in, or are you okay?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think there's anything usefully I can add at the moment, but obviously happy to pick up any questions later on. Thank you. Okay,
lovely. Thank you. Right, who's now?
Councillor,
Liz, I think we're missing Councillor Higgins, are we?
It looks as though Councillor Higgins there. I can't see him at the moment.
No, I think we've lost him.
Okay, so he's dropped out. Hopefully he'll be back. Just Chairman, sorry, I just wanted to remind you we have got a written submission from the agent on this one.
Indeed, you have. Go on.
Okay, so this, as you know, the petition received was in support of the application, and this is actually from the agent, not from the petitioner. So the agent says, "Dear councillors, thank you for the opportunity to write in support of our application to expand West London Film Studios and your officer's report recommending that consent be granted. As your officer's report explains, we are a local, long-established Hillingdon business with strong links to the local community. A film studios has been in operation in this location since 2005, originally known as HDS Studios. My clients changed its name to West London Film Studios in 2014. We work with local schools such as the Guru Nanak Sikh Academy and both Brunel and Uxbridge colleges, local charities such as MADE, which is Make a Difference Entertainment, and are active members of the Chamber of Commerce. We are therefore committed to Hillingdon, and our proposed expansion, we hope, shows how much we wish to remain a small but important part of the Hillingdon business community. The number of letters of support our proposals have received, we like to think, are also testament to this commitment. We do appreciate that our proposals involve Metropolitan Greenbelt, and we understand fully how important this is to your council. That is why we consulted at length with your officers and also with the local community before lodging our application, and explained why it was necessary for MGB land to be involved. Your officers tested our proposals thoroughly and rigorously, and we are pleased that they have accepted our arguments and seen fit to recommend our application for approval. We commend their report to you and hope that you will follow their advice and approve our application." And that's from Mr. Pope, the agent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Liz. I think we have Councillor Higgins back with us.
We do.
Councillor Higgins, did you get all of the presentation there? I know you dropped out for a little while we were doing bits and pieces, but did you get all the presentation?
I got all the presentation. I just, when Penny was about to start.
Okay, so I think we're all right, Liz, then, because Councillor Higgins has heard all of the presentation.
That's fine, and he would have also had these comments circulated previously.
Yeah.
So he's fine. Yeah, fine. I'm just clarifying that before we get going. Right, who's gonna? Councillor Tuckwell is the first hand. Councillor Higgins the second hand. Councillor Haggard's the third hand. Councillor Duncan's fourth. Right. Oh, go on then. I'm just going to work my way around the room. Councillor Tuckwell first.
Okay, it's always good to start the evening with a Greenbelt application. We'll see where this one goes. But for me, I think all members will be rightly concerned about any development on Greenbelt, and quite rightly so. But Hillingdon planning committees have a lot of track record in terms of really scrutinising these. And this one in particular, I think deserves some scrutiny. But when I look at what is termed as Greenbelt land, it is, but it is locked in amongst maintained land. You've got Minette Park, you've got the football pitches, and you've got the industrial area, and indeed Springfield Road itself. So it is fairly unique by way of a Greenbelt parcel. And balancing that with the economic benefit, which we've seen is significant. I mean, it's going to virtually double in terms of in size, which means it's going to double in terms of contribution to the local economy, which will also include a significant uplift in employment, which is to be welcomed. I also think that when we look at the special circumstances tests, yes, it does conflict with one of the 5. The other 4, I think, have been met wholly. But I think looking at the one that hasn't been met, I think when you go back to the uniqueness of that parcel of land, I think the openness point has been addressed, particularly when the applicant is looking to mitigate that with the measures in the report, such as the 20-metre buffer. A couple of questions that have come out for me really on this, though, in relation to the employment that it's just going to generate. And what I'd really like to understand is there anything we can do to really firm up the links with local schools and colleges, so that we can really sort of turn this opportunity into something which our local youngsters in particular can seize and have firm links for apprenticeships and the like? That's my first question. And the second question is anything we can do to prevent further expansion? I mean, it's already a controversial situation when we're looking at greenbelt applications, but is there anything we can do to by way of a condition or an informative that would really sort of outline what we would not expect by way of expansion, such as removing the buffer at some point in the future or looking to grab the football pitches next door? And that's it for me.
Okay. Thank you. James, do you want to take those 2?
Head of term number 4 is our standard employment strategy and construction training head of term. So that should address the point raised by Councillor Tuckwell, and in effect, kind of the bits about to what extent that would involve sort of schools and colleges would, to some extent, fall within the sort of detail that would fall perhaps under that head of term. I guess the question I'm perhaps being asked is there any way of strengthening head of term number 4, which, so just to clarify, members, hopefully this is page 8 of the committee addendum, head of term number 4, employment strategy and construction training. I mean, whether we'd actually be able to strengthen it, that might be slightly tricky because it's a contribution. It's a head of term that's worked very, very well for us in terms of maximising the contribution from developers. And I would add that what we normally seek is the in-kind training scheme. We're not after, our objective is actual schemes rather than contributions. It's hard for me to comment further because normally that head of term does.
Okay. I'll hold that for a minute and see if the council's happy with that. What about anything in terms of informatives, etc., that would make it clear that this probably is the end of where we'd like to see this one go?
There isn't anywhere for them to go, I think, other than into that 20-metre buffer area. So it's simply about ensuring that buffer is protected, dare I say, bolt and braces. I'm pretty confident we have protected it. If members, so it's effectively ensuring, I think the best answer to the question is, have we ensured that buffer is rigorously protected? And that's what we can, if I can be given a few minutes to...
We have a condition which prevents additional floor space from being added. Their proposal is for what they've applied for. If they seek to expand any further within their site, it would require planning permission. So we would look at that quite carefully. But in terms of expansion on, any new application will require planning permission. So we'll have to look at that as and when, if it is submitted. Especially on neighbouring sites, we can't control that. But in terms of this site itself, we have control it by condition.
And I think if we go back a step, the application when it first came in obviously had a building in the location of the current buffer zone. And there was a point at which we were recommending refusal. So a scheme that encroached into the buffer zone would move towards a refusal recommendation because it's not achieving the goals of minimising the impact on the openness of the green belt.
Okay, James, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the important thing is to ensure that that buffer is very robustly protected from any development in any way or form encroaching into it in the future after this development, you know, an assumption that it's allowed. So
could I suggest, James, looking at the conditions, we've standard landscaping on and we've referenced a gas pipeline mitigation, but we haven't actually referenced the 20-metre buffer zone anywhere in our conditions. They referenced by plans, but not in our conditions.
yeah,
And I may be wrong because I'm doing this while I'm talking, but I'm just looking at them now.
yeah, thinking aloud, Chairman, I'm sure there's a straightforward wording that can be inserted into our conditions or heads of terms that effectively ensures robust protection in the future to that landscape buffer area. That's certainly what I want to achieve. So if in debating this item there is various bits of housekeeping, I would certainly wish before members note to include some form of delegated authority so I can ensure that 20-metre buffer is robustly protected from any future development within it.
Thank you, James. Councillor Tuckwell, does that cover your issues? No, Councillor Tuckwell's frozen, I think. It's going to be one of those nights. Right, Councillor Higgins, I'm going to come to you next. I'll come back to Councillor Tuckwell in a minute.
Thank you, Chairman. I've actually got some answers to some of those questions, actually, which should be maybe. The buffer, I'm not happy about that side of the building anyway, so I'd like some trees in there. And if we put the trees in that buffer area, it's going to be very difficult for people to build on. I know they.
Hang on,
I think that buffer is supposed to be trees, isn't it?
It is, Chairman. It is. It would be. It is. In the landscape plan that it shows.
So I think we need to. I know, but we have had landscape plans before that are only indicative. I always keep being told.
There you go.
So I think the word trees.
If we put the word trees in, that solves that buffer problem. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Also, the other thing, I mean, I like this. I mean, I was in favour of Pinewood expanding it. It's enormous. The business that it generates, it's like a car industry. It goes on and on and on. You've got carpenters, you've got, you know, people building scenery. So I'm actually for this. I have no problem with it, and I will propose it. I haven't a problem with that either. The only thing I was about concerned is the height in relation to the other buildings. That the drawings don't really reflect it, and the photographs don't really reflect it. Can we just make sure that it isn't that much bigger than what's around it? I'm sure that's not a problem. And obviously, I know the site very well because we own a gym there and a five-a-side stuff as the council does. I just want to know, those pictures were hardly used anyway. Can you just confirm that is the case, that no club was on there and we've actually moved, if there was a club, have we moved them on? Apart from that, I will go with Officer, and as I said, I will propose it. Okay.
So now, do you just want to confirm the height and that what we're building on effectively wasn't pitches originally?
So what we're building on wasn't pitches. The pitches are next door. I can show you the view if you want to see it again, if it would be helpful.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
And I'll let Councillor Higgins come back in a minute.
In terms of its height, it is. Councillor Higgins is right. It is a little taller than the neighbouring buildings, but the reason for that height is to accommodate the office space and the studio spaces that are required for the film studio. So I think there's limited. So in terms, yes, it will be higher. It is 15 metres in height, and it is higher than the other buildings. That is expressed on plan, but we have tried to minimise it as best we can, and the applicant has committed to looking at options for green roofs and green walls as part of one of the conditions to minimise that impact.
Councillor Higgins, did you want to come back?
Yeah, they were football pitches, and if you go to the presentation, you can actually see the outline of the football pitches on the site there. I know the site very well, but obviously maybe they haven't been in use for a long time. That's fine. The other thing is obviously we touched on the heavy goods vehicles coming in and out, and they've done a plan there. I'm just concerned on that road when the school is really active in the times. Is there any way that we can condition delivery of heavy goods vehicles between certain times rather than affecting the traffic situation on the site? Apart from that's the only thing I've got left. Thank you.
Well, we've got condition 16 is a servicing and delivery plan.
Yeah, but
it's got to incorporate measures to minimise vehicle deliveries during AM and PM peak hours.
Yeah, but I want it to be a little bit more specific than that, Jeremy, because the school at school times it is a nightmare down there. It is absolutely. I mean, it is. You wouldn't believe the traffic down there. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Come in, Chairman.
Let me hold that for a second. James, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, well, I was actually going to agree with Councillor Higgins. I think condition 16 should actually specify the schools. I do know Springfield Road very well, and we're going to have 2 schools down there in the future. So I think Councillor Higgins is absolutely right. The servicing delivery plan actually needs to have the schools referenced in it.
Okay. Right, I will note that. I'm going to come back to all of these at the end because I'm getting a list already. We've only just started.
I've now got my head around the earlier point about the landscape buffer. The point that was slightly jarring in my brain was in terms of landscape maintenance. So a condition normally has a landscape maintenance schedule for a minimum period of 5 years. And I think the problem is that we'd want a longer time frame. So what I'd like to suggest to the committee is that the landscape buffer is actually included as ahead of term, because it's so important that I think it should be actually covered in the legal agreement, and subject to the committee delegating to me, I'm sure we can draft a suitable head of term that ensures the landscape buffer it has the level of protection it needs to have, which I fear could get slightly lost given the standard wording that's used in landscaping conditions.
Okay, James, I think that's very helpful to members. I've got Councillor Haggart was next on my list.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good report there, actually, very in depth, and I think officers have really compiled it well together. Whilst obviously we don't want to build on any green belt, and I think there has to be extreme special circumstances if we are going to. Looking through the report, there's just 3 things I've just picked out that I just want to say. One of them is about the economic growth. Councillor Topwell's already said actually in his part when he was saying about it, but there is a massive good growth for the borough and for outside as well. So I think we do need to note that. I was concerned about the buffer, but we've covered that now with the trees and also the maintenance of it. So James has done that. One thing I just wanted to check on, we've looked at the wasteland. Obviously, we looked at it when we were going through the pre-meeting. It looks like wasteland rather than green belt, I have to say. But I just wanted to just make sure there be no damage to the wildlife or any diversity effect on that, just to confirm that. The third thing I just wanted to draw attention was with the actual letters that we've had as support as well from companies that are actually surrounding that. When I was looking at the consultation, they've actually only received 1 response, which was welcoming, but just raised concerns about the highways impact, which again we've covered. And then also the applicant provided 44 letters of support. So I just wanted that noted. And there was just one more thing when I was going through it I wanted to draw the attention of, and that was actually the footpath improvements. I think although it's a small piece, it should be very well noted that there will be a provision for a new footpath, which will also take away the danger of the current one. So those are the things I just wanted to bring attention to. And the only question I have really is just to confirm about the greenbelt land, the wasteland, and not any damage to wildlife or anything like that. Thank you, Chair.
Should I respond to the biodiversity? Yeah. So we have a response from our ecology officer, and he has confirmed that it's of limited value at the moment, and actually the buffer that is being provided will be an enhancement and will provide more ecological benefits and diversity than what's there currently. Thank you, Chair.
You're mute, Chairman. Chairman, you're mute.
Yeah, you're on mute. Put it on mute to stop any background noise at my end. Councillor Duncan, you were next on my list.
Thank you. I'm very happy with the report, very happy with the recommendations and everything that's said. The major omission, as far as I'm concerned, are any compensatory measures regarding enhancement of Greenbelt. Whenever we've allowed development in the Greenbelt anywhere on a small or large scale, there's been compensation to Greenbelt. It isn't in the policy officer's report, it isn't in the heads of terms, it isn't anywhere. I would like that to be included. I'm sure it's something, because there's so many policies that do refer to this, both in the National Plan and London Plan, etc. But really, because we've got Minette Country Park next door, and we have actually got a public facility next door, I would hope that there could be some upgrading of that in some way, and that could also address the biodiversity issues. I noticed that it is a proposed sink in the approved local plan, and it would help to address that issue as well. I noticed that it's, it's not a site of any great biodiversity at the moment that we can see, and Henry's quite right that there were playing fields there, and I think they were from the former Technicolor people who had their sports ground there at some point in the past. It may have got passed on to other people, but certainly I know there were playing fields there originally. So that's the thing that I would like to see included, please. We've always had this when there was development at Stockley, the Northwood Leisure Centre, anywhere like that. It's just an automatic thing, and I don't know why it hasn't been carried forward here, but hopefully it can be, and we can get those measures put into something that does have public access and benefit, which is the park next door. But if they want to do it on some other piece of greenbelt land, bring that up to scratch or improve it in some way, great. But that needs to be included. That's an omission as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
You're on mute, Chairman.
Well, I need you to comment.
Yeah. So if I can explain why officers didn't request a greenbelt contribution, effectively, this goes back to the original presentation Zainab did. Originally, the developer wanted to develop all of the site effectively with new buildings, and we started this discussion about a greenbelt buffer. In fact, the greenbelt buffer grew during the course of discussions, because we decided during the course of those negotiations we wanted a substantial buffer, and in effect, the buffer itself was the step towards addressing the greenbelt policy objectives. So our negotiations were securing the substantial buffer, which will have tree planting in, rather than looking directly at Minette Park, because we felt that the key point here was to get that substantial buffer, and that was the step towards mitigating the harm to the greenbelt, as well, of course, taking into account there was an awful lot of work over the past year on the special circumstances arguments, and I think it was Councillor Hagar that mentioned all the representations the applicant received. It should be noted, and I probably should have said this earlier, this proposal has support from all the big players in the film industry. The British film. Well, I won't go through them all, but yeah, it has support from all the big players who finance and support the British film industry. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Duncan?
Yes,
We'll
well,
come back at that.
yes. Well, I would expect this to have the support of its industry, and I'm very relieved to hear it. I'd be very concerned if it didn't, in fact. But the fact is that this is local mitigation. They're building on the green belt. They're building on the green belt. And so they have to mitigate that. Of course, they can't build right up to the boundary. Even they would understand that. That's just part of the site, dealing with the site, and the site matters. What I'm talking about is the principle and the compensation for that within the wider terms of the policy for the whole local plan. And I'm saying it's very convenient for them that Minette Country Park is next door, where they can give some improvements, some enhancements, maybe, further access for different groups of people or disabled people or whatever. But certainly I regard the 20-metre or 27-metre buffer planted up as essential. This is quite a big building. It's going to be viewed widely from the west. And so, of course, one would expect that, and they would. But we do need to have something more than that. And I would like that included in the terms, please. Thank you.
I'm going to hold that for a minute and see where others are on that, and I might ask the head of planning to come back to me. Councillor Morse, you're the last indicated speaker at the moment, so if I can take your contribution, and then we'll see where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, James Rogers covered one of my issues with Springfield Road, and so did Councillor Higgins. I take the view here that this is Greenbelt, and one of the functions was a buffer. We've now retained a lesser buffer, but I'll accept the fact I still think we've retained a buffer. But I think the key issue here to me is that the planning rules are correct. We're not inhibiting development, and we as local councillors can actually overrule this in development interest. So I actually think that the fact that we are making the decision and that the green belt are not removed, I'm actually defending the planning system. I think this the approval of this is actually a good idea, because it's quite clear we're in economic stress possibly very shortly, and this is a means of providing employment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I support it.
Okay, does anybody else want to come in before I ask the head of planning to come back on the Greenbelt enhancement issue, which is the only one I've got outstanding? No? Okay, James, back to you.
Yeah, the other slight problem we have is that you've got the cycle track to the rear. So we did have the thought process as well, should we look to go beyond the site boundary? And the problem is when you look at the geography, and this is also relevant to the reason why there's absolutely zero ecology on the site, because it's one of the most developed bits of the park to the rear. It's very heavily maintained. You've got the cycle track. There are bits of Minette Park that do have biodiversity. They're, of course, near the river. They're in other parts of the park, but not the bit immediately to the rear. So you can't really start planting trees in that bit. So which is why the discussion sort of focused in on, let's get the biggest possible buffer we can get out of the developer. And part of the reason it's taken a year for this to get to committee is because we fought very hard to get 20-metre buffer, which I know on plan form it may not look substantial, but 20 metres of the width, the depth of it is well, it's now we'll know an exact figure, it's well over 80 metres, I think. So effectively the area of, it's in thousands of square metres we're talking about. So so the extent of that landscaped area kind of causes us a problem to then ask for further money to Minette, is the view we took. So it isn't the case that it hadn't crossed our minds, but yeah, we thought it was difficult. The other slight problem I think we've got is I'm not, we'd have to sort of justify an exact sum for a contribution and exactly how and where and how it will be spent on Minette Park. And as I say, we are getting there's quite a big air quality contribution and quite a big contribution towards Springfield Road. So Yeah, I guess I can't really say much more on this, Councillor Labour.
Okay, thank you, James. I mean, obviously, Councillor Duncan has one view. Any other members want to come in on this? Otherwise, it becomes the view of one councillor, and therefore, no, everybody else is sitting quiet. Councillor Morse, yeah, okay, go on.
Button one go. I am actually in agreement with Councillor Duncan, so take it away from one councillor, at least two councillors that actually agree with her point.
Okay, no, that's what I was trying to. I was trying to get. I was trying to just get. It was there more than one.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting any other hands. Everybody else looks as if they're gone quiet on me.
Can you hear me, Chairman?
Which is Councillor Tuckworth, Councillor Higgins.
Yes, sorry.
I've lost sight of you, but I can hear you.
I don't know. Am I not here? I should be here. Anyway.
No, you're not. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Anyway, I do sympathise with Councillor. I don't agree with. It is what she's saying is absolutely correct, but sometimes the circumstances are different, and I think we have a very good package here that will give other things to the community, considering the business and other things, and I'm sure that they will be willing to work with the rest of Hillingdon to do other things as well. So I think it's a bit of a winner. And as I said, I've moved this. So
right. Thank you, Councillor Higgins. I'll take Councillor Tuckwell, and then I'm going to move this to a vote because I'm not seeing a majority for anything else at the moment. Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, I was saying pretty much similar to what Councillor Higgins said there, but I think it's all been covered off, and I think this is such a unique situation. There's already significant contributions in other areas, and I think so. Yeah, I'm in support of this.
Will you second this one then, Councillor Tuckwell?
I will happily second it, Chairman.
Good. Okay. Okay. In that case, I'm going to move to the vote. I am proposed and seconded. I've got no further indicators of speakers. Councillor Tuckwell seconded. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I'm abstaining, Chair.
Fine. Councillor Morgan.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Higgins proposed. Councillor Melvin. Councillor Melvin.
Chairman, sorry. For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hagger.
Yes, for, Chair.
Councillor Sansapuri.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for, 1 abstention. Liz, that one is therefore approved.
That's correct, Chairman.
And there were only 2 changes, which James has got. One is 20-metre buffer is going into the S106, and condition 16 is going to be enhanced to reference school times in particular, which I'm sure the officers have got. Right, I move to item 7. Glen House, Storley Road, Hayes, and this is variation of conditions amending the design. So the principle here has already been done. We're just changing the designs.
Thank you, Chairman. Glen House was at Planning Committee not that long ago, so we have granted planning permission for the demolition of the existing offices and workshops on the site and the erection of one larger warehouse building for a mixed B1, B2 and B8 building. The building itself would be subdivided into 3 units. The applicants have gained planning permission, and I've got some images of the approved scheme. So the application site is directly opposite the old vinyl factory. So for context, this is the old vinyl factory. It's obviously got a few more buildings on now because that's an old site layout plan. We approved planning permission with a wavy roof form. The applicants are effectively coming back to vary the planning permission for a simpler form of development, but by virtue of removing the waved roof at the upper level, they are proposing to install a similar feature by virtue of a canopy along the front of the building. So this shows you the proposed front and rear elevations. There is no change to the land uses, to the proposed quantum of employment floor space that's being proposed. So this is a proposed ground floor plan, which effectively wouldn't change. We still have 3 commercial units, which would be serviced via Dawley Road, with a entrance off Dawley Road and an exit in forward gear back onto Dawley Road. This is a proposed first floor plan, so there is a mezzanine to provide additional floor space. The car parking layout remains unchanged. And this is the plan that demonstrates where the fundamental change is. It's just along the front strip of the building where the curved canopy has been removed or the curved roof form has been removed and the curved canopy installed. So this is your side elevation drawings. And then this shows the change. So there's an area that's been infilled and then a new canopy is proposed, which offers that waved design feature, which is shown on this front elevation plan. The application has been assessed by the design officer. There were some initial concerns raised about the design quality of the proposed canopy. So we've chosen to impose an additional condition. So that's condition number 19 on page 86 of your report, which seeks further details of that canopy structure to ensure that it's of a good quality finish at a later date. In all other respects, the application is recommended for approval subject to the same legal agreement requirements and conditions as the original consent from earlier this year. I will take you through to some site photographs for your information. So this is the street scene of the site, and the site itself is where this CW signage is. A view in the opposite direction. So this is the building to be demolished. These are the temporary structures for the Crossrail compound at the application site, and directly opposite the site is this bar and pub, which has been closed down for some time. And I will hand back to Councillor Lavery. The application is recommended for approval.
You're mute, Chairman. You're mute.
I have to stop muting tonight. Councillor Morse followed by Councillor Tuckwell. And then Councillor Duncan. Councillor Morse, are you off mute?
Sorry, I was trying to indicate to you you're on mute. No, I don't think there's too much to discuss here. I will actually post the recommendation. We go forward with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, I agree. There's not really much to debate here from my perspective. I'd happily second the officer's recommendation.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Duncan as well then in case she's got anything else to...
It was just a question, Chair, about the canopy. How far does it project? And is it envisaged that it's going to be in a plastic or hard material, or are they thinking of softer materials?
Madam?
The canopy doesn't project all that far. I can go back to the image if you'd like, but it's also at a higher level, so it would not impact upon large-scale vehicles going into the building and via the car park. So it does not project, it probably projects about half the depth of a car parking space, so maybe 1.5 meters. The materials have not been specified, and I think because the design officer was unhappy about not knowing those materials, that's the reason we've imposed condition number 19. But I don't think we would approve anything that wasn't akin to the rest of the industrial building. So hopefully not plastic.
And hopefully it would be, in some permanent material. That would be the reason for putting the condition on, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm happy. Thank you.
I think we're all done on this one. It is fairly straightforward. Councillor, I'm going to take it now to the vote. Councillor Tuckwell seconded. Councillor Duncan?
For.
Councillor Morgan?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse proposed. Councillor Higgins?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Melvin?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Sansapuri?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. That's 8 votes in for and therefore approved. Do you agree, Liz?
Yes, I do, Chairman.
Thank you. Right. Next one, former Nestle factory, Nestle Avenue Hayes, of course, is familiar to all of us. We've seen this a few times before. Amanda.
Thank you, Chairman. The application, as Councillor Chairman said, is another resubmission at the Nestle factory. Now, the application site is outlined in red on the screen. These are the constraints plans. So the darker brown area denotes the locally listed buildings on site, the facades of which have been retained on the main factory building. The retention of this building is sought through the wider planning permission, and this building was demolished primarily due to its quality. It was flooded at the time consent was granted a few years ago, and the entire site is within a conservation area. Just as a reminder, the application site is a strategic site allocation within our site allocations document. So the Nestle factory site comprises of site A within the site allocation. So this is our local plan, which designates the sites for, it does say here, in the region of 1,000 units. We already have 1,300 units consented. So the current application seeks an uplift of 84 residential units within a small section of the site. So the blocks outlined within the red on this plan denote where there are going to be increases in height to accommodate the additional 84 units. Now that's an uplift of 84 units across the entire area of the residential development. But all we're really assessing under this application is the areas within the red lines. If I take you through the plans now, I know your presentation packs had the formal planning drawings, but what I've tried to do is assist and aid the understanding of the application by taking some of the slides from the applicant's design and access statement, which shows on the left of your screens the approved development, and on the right of your screens how the scheme is therefore changing as a result of these proposals. So the application at basement level within Block B proposes an expansion of the basement area. The basement will therefore be accommodating additional car parking spaces. This is allowing the retention of a 0.6 car parking ratio across the site. Therefore, the additional 84 units will be serviced by additional car parking, which is being delivered through an increase in the basement. If we go through the ground floor, again, the approved scheme is on the left, and helpfully on the right, anything that's changing within the scheme is dotted in a red outline. So you were provided with this presentation yesterday, so if you've had a chance to review it, you'll be able to see it's a lot easier and clearer to see where the changes are occurring throughout the development. So there are minor changes to Block B throughout the development, but primarily the changes occur at upper floor level, insofar as you'll see here at 6th floor level, this was a flat roof, and there is additional height proposed here. There is a reconfiguration of accommodation on the left. And again, on this plan, you'll see that there is additional accommodation proposed on the northern part of Block B and on the eastern side. So there is some infilling of most of the blocks, and you'll see that throughout the development. Again, it's infilled on the left of Block B's podium as well as on the right-hand side. All of the plans go through the presentation in a similar fashion, so there is additional height added to Block B at 10th floor level to provide the additional accommodation. These are the elevation drawings of Block B, and this indicates the next slide shows where the additional height is being proposed. This has been through the council's urban design officer, and whilst in principle there are no concerns raised with regard to the increase in height because the articulation is maintained, there are some comments in the committee addendum that was circulated yesterday which just seek some clarification about some detail on one of the blocks. So we propose to add an additional condition to address the fairly late comments that we received on that. If we take you through to Block C is one of the blocks where we are also seeing an additional height increase throughout the building, but we are also seeing the delivery of an area of rooftop communal amenity space. So each of the new units is provided with a balcony or a garden of some sort. They don't meet the planning policy requirements for the borough, but there is this additional piece of communal amenity space being proposed for the wider development. This was an issue that came up during the last application, whereby there was some concern that obviously there was an increase in units, and that was only when there were 3 units being increased, but there wasn't a commensurate increase in amenity space. Now there remains a shortfall throughout the site on private amenity space, and you'll see within your report on page 176 we are securing a quantum uplift in the planning obligations which sought to mitigate the harm for the shortfalls. One of the things I do need to draw out and bring to your attention is that obviously the site is finite, so there is only so far that the development can deliver additional play space. So when we've looked at child play space, the additional 84 units do generate a child yield. Therefore, there is a requirement to provide additional child play space on the site. That cannot be delivered within the application site boundary without obviously removing a block, which defeats the object of the application. So what we have done is secured a planning obligation of £72,000, which will be specifically to enhance child play space within the vicinity of the site. I can't guarantee exactly where that will be spent, but the money will be used to enhance the play facilities for the older years, which is the year that isn't really catered for on the site itself. There is some older child play, so there is a proposed running track proposed under the consented scheme. I might have an image of it later, and that's along the canal, but obviously they couldn't increase that, so therefore we're seeking the obligation in order to provide enhancements elsewhere. So I've taken you through block C. One of the other blocks which is altered is block F, and these are the 2 blocks which front onto the Grand Union Canal and are attached to the locally listed building. And again, there is a slight increase in height, as you can see on this plan, to one of the units, and that's again shown within these floor plans by virtue of the proof being on the left and the AUS being on the current application drawings being on the right hand side. This is a quick before and after of how this elevation will change along the canal, and again that seemed to be acceptable. Block H is one of the blocks within Wallace Gardens. So for context, the canteen building, so that's the other locally listed building, is this building which surrounds Block G. Now, Block G at the moment is attached physically to the canteen building, so there are conditions that have been imposed to ensure that the integrity of the canteen building is maintained during the construction of Block H. Block H is being amended, and I think this is one of the more fundamental changes insofar as the application now proposes 40% affordable housing. Now, that was secured a year or so ago, but we're also securing discount market sale development units, and they will all be housed within Block H. So this is a type of affordable housing, a fairly new type of accommodation, and they will all be comprised within this development, and that's delivering 35 units of accommodation. This Block H did originally have family accommodation, and the remainder of the site had family accommodation in it. I think one of the things I need to clarify is that the number of 3-bed units by virtue of percentage is not changing across the site. It's not increasing, but it's not decreasing either. To a certain extent, when you're building upwards, you follow the floor plan upwards as well, and therefore there is only limited scope to provide any additional 3-bed accommodation. But the extant scheme and the 9.9% of 3-bed units is being maintained. If I take you through to the remainder of these plans, this is a quick before and after of Block H. So this is the block which is in Wallace Gardens. It's not increasing in height substantially, but it is deemed to be appropriate for its design. It has got a slight extension on one side of the building, but it's not fundamental and doesn't impact on Wallace Gardens, which is the key part of public open space. So this is a useful summary of all the changes that have occurred through this application. So you can see where the block story heights have increased throughout the site. The majority of them are 1, but there are some 2-story additions. Everything along Nestles Avenue, officers have fought quite hard to maintain stays at the height that it is, primarily because of that relationship with all of the houses which exist on the southern side of Nestles Avenue. So there are no changes to any of the building heights or design features along the frontage of the Nestle factory development. I believe that I have covered most of the fundamental changes through the application. I do have some site photos of how it's looking at the moment, but we are recommending approval subject to all of the conditions and all of the heads of terms set out on page 104 onwards. And if I just take you through to some site photos, and then I'll hand over to James. So this is just the front of the elevation. And if I stop talking, I'll let James jump in here.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. It's just a very quick point. I did want to make a minor tweak to one of the heads of terms. It's number 23. I just want to add some words to it. So I'd want to change it to 72,000 contribution towards child play space and recreational facilities. That change is just to ensure that we have a degree of flexibility to ensure the money, we're not unduly fettered in how that money is spent by too restrictive an ultimate Section 106 agreement, but we would obviously ensure it is spent appropriately. The other quick point I wanted to make is members, there is an important statutory consultee on this application, which is Historic England. Their comments on pages 152 to 153, and just like the original main application for this site, Historic England are happy with these proposals. Their precise words are, they conclude by saying, we are therefore content that these changes would not have a major implication on the significance of the conservation area further to the consented scheme. So just to clarify that an important consultee on this application isn't raising an objection. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Mandy, were you finished, or have you got some photos to share?
These are the photos on screen at the moment. The only other thing I would say is at the time of publishing the committee report, the public consultation hadn't run out, but I can confirm that we haven't received any comments on this application up until the end of the public consultation period. So these are just some of the photos. This shows the retained railings at the application site and then the locally listed building in the distance. I believe there is a marketing suite over to the left, so beyond the trees and outside of the tree canopies, and that's the application site. I will stop sharing the presentation and hand back to you, Councillor Lavery.
Okay, I have got, on my list, I've got Councillor Higgins, followed by Councillor Tuckwell, and then Councillor Duncan. Councillor Higgins, away you go.
Thank you, Chairman. 72k seems a rather small amount of money. Is it? I suppose officers are going to tell me that it's a calculated thing to come to that figure.
It's calculated based on the uplift.
Yeah,
yes.
It annoys me when developers keep doing this, as you know.
I do.
These 84 units. Am I correct that they're all one bedroom or two bedroom?
It's one and twos, I think, but Mandit will confirm.
It's sort of one of those things. I think in my heart I wish to object, but I can't really. So I will propose this tentatively, Chairman. Can the officers just confirm that it is a mixture of one and two bedrooms?
Okay. Yeah, Mandit.
I can confirm it is a mixture. It is not just studios or one beds.
And the only other thing is I saw the drawing that you showed of all the uplifting. There isn't an increase in shadowing at all, is there? On some of the buildings. It was that the drawing that you showed, Mandit, which showed all of the site with the uplift of the buildings. Was that shadowing correct? Or is it just artistic impression?
That was not shadowing. So the definition that was provided was the additional stories being added to the building. There hasn't been a daylight sunlight assessment, and there wasn't deemed to be significant harm or significant harm to warrant a refusal.
That's fine. As I said,
okay, thank you. Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to build on Councillor Higgins' comments there, I mean, for me, this was a good scheme that has become not so good scheme now, I think, with the increases that we're seeing here. But hands are tied, I think, in relation to what we can object to. It was short on amenity space previously, and it's even shorter now. I know there's an uplift of 72,000, but, you know, where's that going to go, and is it enough? I'm also disappointed that we're seeing an uplift in accommodation, but we're not seeing an uplift in family units. Appreciate the configuration just going up, does limit us a little bit. But on that note, is there anything that we can do to sort of draw a line on this development now? And you know, I think we're at a point now where we can't add any more to this. So I'd be interested to hear
James
some comments, but I'd reluctantly second.
I got asked a similar question at the last Hillingdon South Committee, and this relates to whether we can add an informative to a consent advising a developer that the committee may not view favourably future applications. And what I advise the Central and South Committee is you can, but it is only an informative. So it obviously members must be mindful that an informative is not binding on an applicant, and neither is it binding on the council if there is a future application. But that said, we can, if members so wish, they could delegate to me to draft an informative that says we don't want any more units added.
Accepting what you say, James, I think we are getting to the point on this one where they're going to, if they carry on, undo the good work that was done in the original design. You know, the original scheme was well designed and had a lot of nice things about it, accepting some of the amenity space shortfalls. We're now beginning to push and push and push. So I think an informative would be helpful at accepting its limitations. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I agree with previous speakers. You know, you get permission and then you come back and see how far you can push the planning committee. And I suppose you can push them as far as you can and still until they start putting on an informative saying no more, no more. So I would support putting on an informative, please. Just a couple of questions. I note the 72k and the amendment James suggested, child play space, recreational facilities. Can we put as close to the area as possible? Because it's no good it being, you know, miles away, because that's really not going to be of any help at all. You know, we're putting in more units, some of them 2-bed, which will have children. So can we put that in?
James, does that give you a problem?
I'm not sure exactly how we work. I mean, I'm pretty confident the intention is to spend the money locally, but I'm going to pass to the legal officer on this one, if that's okay.
Glenn?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure we can come up with a form of wording that will satisfy members on that to make sure the money is spent as near to the site as possible.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. The other thing that I wanted to, well, two other things. On the 106, item 21 says contribution of 855,601 for air quality. In the last committee report that came to us on the 7th of May earlier this year, it was 1.3,305,394. So why is it suddenly dropped by 500,000? I mean, we're having more units, presumably more activity. I should think we'd need more air quality mitigation, please. So I don't know whether that's just a typo or what, but
well, if the officers could clarify, because I did ask a question to ensure that everything had been uplifted correctly. So James or Mandip, can you possibly comment?
I'm happy to double check this, but the sum that you might be referring to could be the one for the employment and the residential land, whereas we've only set out on this in this list on page 104, 105, the residential obligations, and there's a footnote that says there is no change to the industrial obligations. So I can take that away and double check to make sure that it's uplifted appropriately, but we do believe it has been.
Well, if you wouldn't mind checking, that would be a reassurance. Yes, thank you. And the last thing is, I noticed that there's an overheating assessment, but have we got an energy stroke heating condition that covers this? Because I know it's been mentioned before, we've had problems in buildings in Hayes, and there's current ongoing enforcement issues, I think, in buildings in West Drayton. So we'd just like to know that that's properly covered, please.
Amanda?
I can't see it off the top of my head, but I thought all of the reports in today's committee agenda had it. So can you let me check? And if it doesn't have one, we will take the wording from Fairview, which has an overheating condition.
Yeah, it has got condition 22, overheating assessment, but I think you need a more detailed one, don't you? That refers to the London plan policy and all the rest of it.
I suspect, Councillor Duncan, when we approved this originally, we weren't quite so aware of the issues of overheating that have subsequently come to light.
But we're now approving new units.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We must.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just thinking that that's maybe how it's occurred.
Yes, I think so, because I think the local plan was going through its final stages.
Indeed.
And also the London plan was not yet approved at that point, I think. So, yes, it was sort of in train, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you.
It was. So, Councillor Higgins, do you indicate a little while back, do you want to come in just...
Yes, please, Chairman. Can I just emphasise that I do appreciate where Councillor Duncan's going about the 72k being spent. But the reason that it's usually loose is because if there isn't something in that area that it can be spent on, it can be spent somewhere else. And if we tie it up too tight, that means if all of the money can't be spent in that area, it means we lose it. So as long as the wording is correct, I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem whether it gives us the opportunity of 50k spent and there's 25k to be spent somewhere in Yedding or somewhere else. I'd rather that still be happening. I don't know whether that. I think I can see James indicating, but that's all my concern. As I said, I've proposed them.
Okay, James, do you want to come in? I'm sure you could think of something.
Yeah, the reason that change came about was because I was talking to our planning policy manager this afternoon about various aspects to the planning committee, and she raised a concern that simply having the words child play space was very defined, and it was her. We talked about it, and hence the additional words and recreational facilities, and the thought process with those words added. There's plenty of sites in Hayes, and that would enable us to then spend the money and deliver improvements to local residents that the committee, I'm sure, would ultimately support. And I do agree with Glenn's point. I don't think there'd be a problem with us. There's plenty of sites locally. I don't think we're going to get caught out. It was more ensuring that the actual head of term had sufficient flexibility, that we weren't going to come unstuck spending the money locally.
Yeah. I've got Councillor Morgan has indicated, and I haven't forgotten him, but can I just, Councillor Duncan's come back. Are you coming back on your point that we were talking about?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, that's why I did say as possible. I didn't mean it to be, right there if it can't be. But if it's possible to have it somewhere within the vicinity, even if that's, a little distance away. Obviously, we do not want it to be tied up in a way that we can't spend it anywhere, but just as close as possible, please, because this is a huge site. There are going to be a lot of children. There'll be a lot of pressure on those facilities.
I think noted. Councillor Morgan, that's my last one, I think, on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that when this first came through to planning, it was a fantastic area. It looked great on paper, and now what it's looking like is just blocks of flat, a concrete jungle almost. And it's just sad that the developers are just interested in money, and not the outcome and everything for the residents that end up living there. It's unfortunate that yet again it's come to us for extra stories, more units being built, and like Councillor Higgins, Councillor Duncan have all said that, we've got to the point now where we've got to say enough is enough. And so that informative, I think, is essential to say, look, hey guys, you've pushed the limit now, no more. But reluctantly, yes, I'm in favour of this, but it's enough is enough, I think.
I think members' reservations are noted. Obviously, but obviously the power of informative is just that. James, do you want to come in before I sum this up?
I think I can give a bit of comfort to Councillor Morgan. This started as quite a lot more units when it first came in than is now before committee, and then effectively part of the reason Historic England aren't objecting, which is why I wanted to make a point of that, is that all the units that were potentially affecting the important architectural bits achieved through the first application were pulled out. So yes, they are adding extra units, but your officers have ensured that the 84 that are left from the original 3-figure number are the ones that are the least harmful. So I just wanted to give committees that reassurance, and that's why Historic England aren't objecting, because they've been involved in this for the past year, because it dates back to 2019, this application, as well as your officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so I am proposed and seconded. We have condition changes in the addendum. We have changes to the S106 in terms of condition head of term 23. Head of term 21 requires checking. The energy overheating condition needs to go in, and an informative regarding committee's views that we've kind of reached the limit of where we'd like to be. And with that lot, I think we are done. So, Councillor, I'll move to the vote. Councillor Tuckwell seconded. Councillor Duncan.
4.
Councillor Morgan.
4, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse.
4, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins proposed. Councillor Melvin.
Yes, 4, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger.
4, Chairman.
Councillor Sansapuri.
4, Mr. Chairman.
That's a unanimous vote in favour, and that one's approved. Do you agree, Liz?
Yes, Chairman, I agree.
Thank you. I now move to item 9, which is the Fairview Business Centre, Clayton Road, Hayes. I will just clarify that this is effectively the other half of the scheme at the Crown Business Centre we looked at a couple of months back. The report does talk about a scheme to come forward for the Crown Business Centre, because it was always thought this scheme that we're looking at tonight would hit committee first, and in fact it didn't. So the proposed, Councillor Morgan is going to switch himself off for a minute.
I'll switch it off.
Yeah, thank you. When it talks about a proposed scheme at the Crown Business Centre, that is in fact the one you have already seen. It's not something different. It's the one you approved about 2 meetings back. Mandy.
That's right. It is the one from a few meetings ago, but it hasn't been formally approved. It's been obviously recommended for approval by yourselves. It's still going through the Section 106 process. Yeah. There is an addendum on this item which was circulated yesterday. I'd also like to provide you with a verbal update before I start the presentation. So the council received a representation from TfL. The council's committee report on page 289 states that it was not deemed that TfL had met the regulatory tests prescribed when seeking planning obligations to mitigate the harm resulting from a development proposal. This specifically related to the request by TfL for £370,000 for the A312 Healthy Streets scheme. The additional information we've received within the TfL representation does now clarify that the monies that TfL are requesting do meet the tests by the SIL Regulations 2010. The council therefore wishes this clarification to be minuted to allow the correction of the references made on page 289 of the report. However, the scheme already secures local highways mitigation by way of the Clayton Road Healthy Streets scheme, and that's a head of term that's set out within the committee report. And whilst there are no additional monies available for the strategic A312 Ballsbridge project, which TfL have requested, some of the works that we are securing under the Clayton Road Healthy Streets scheme are securing the objectives of the wider strategic A312 scheme to the benefit of the strategic programme. The council's recommendation therefore remains unchanged. So we're not seeking any additional monies for the A312 Healthy Street Scheme, albeit it is deemed that the ask of TfL was a legitimate one. I will now go over the presentation. So the application site is shown on screen and it's located to the north of Clayton Road in Hayes. The application site is former industrial business land. Now it was de-designated as part of the last local plan review, and this is the site allocation that this site has within the local plan part 2. So although it's subdivided into site A and site B, it is under, I believe, single ownership, or at least the application is for a single delivery of the entire site A and B that's shown on the screen at the moment. So the application itself proposes the demolition of all of the warehouses on the site. So they're shown in this green colour on the screen at the moment. And the application proposes the mixed-use redevelopment of the site to provide 2 buildings of staggered building heights between 3 and 10 stories. So those are the existing site elevations. So it's industrial in form and approximately 3 to 4 stories. And the application proposed layout, as shown on the screen, shows 1 building block to the right and 1 building block to the left. The canal is located to the north. So at the moment there is no access to the Grand Union Canal from the application site because it's a closed off site. And we will now be opening that up to provide access for pedestrians to go and enjoy the canal front. And that's a very similar proposal to the one that we saw at Crown. Now this road along the left-hand side services the current application site, but in the future, that as part of the heads of terms, it's proposed that the additional land secured on the Crown site, as well as the Fairview development, will provide 1 single access road into the site, but also a spine of open land that will lead down to the canal. So at the ground floor level, you'll see that there is primarily commercial along the perimeters of the site, interspersed with some residential townhouses along the frontage, and then internally below the podium, which is above, you have the car parking provision for the site. This is the first floor plan. Again, this one shows primarily residential floor space with some mezzanine floor areas provided for commercial use, and then podium gardens to serve the remainder of the development. That follows through the remainder of the application site, but you'll note along here, when we get to 3rd floor level, there is a clear break in the building form in order to minimize the built form along Clayton Road. And that carries on throughout the building. So the heights reduce along the frontage, and it's only this part of the building, which is closest to the Crown site, which retains an element of height. And that's because it moves away from the residential feel on the southern side of Clayton Road. Take you through to the proposed 5th floor, and again you'll see the setbacks in, or the flat roofs in green, and then the majority of the built form continues within the northern and central parts of this application site. This is the 8th floor, the 9th floor, and then we have a roof plan. Take you through to some of the proposed elevations. The central one identifies the existing building heights on site, and then those of the proposed development. So there are other developments within the surrounding area that are taller than the existing industrial uses. One of the things this doesn't show is the context of the consented Crown development site, which will be over to the left-hand side of the current elevation plans. This is the proposed play space strategy. Obviously, we've discussed a lot of play space in the Nestle application, but again, we have sought to ensure that we are securing adequate child play space to serve the development itself. But this development uniquely also provides a small area of public park. I say small, it will be significant in size, and that fronts onto the canal side, and that's one of the key benefits of the development itself. The application is proposing 35% affordable housing on site. It does not provide a tenure mix that is policy compliant, so it has been through a viability review, and this is the maximum that can be delivered on site. So we are securing a review mechanism to see whether there's any more that we can secure at a later date. If I show you here, we've got some separation distances shown. So this is just to ensure that we are, or the application is maintaining the 21-metre separation distances, hab room to hab room, and is providing a good element of separation for the podium decks between the hab rooms. We go through, these are some of the proposed CGIs from the canal frontage. So the towpath is actually on the side of where this image is taken from. This area at the moment, as I said, is all closed off, so it will be now opened up to public access. And then there's another CGI from the other side of the towpath. I'm sorry about the poor quality of this, but this is actually a CGI of the proposed frontage along Clayton Road. And as you can see, there was a real effort to try and minimise the maximum height of the buildings along Clayton Road. And we have also secured a significant setback from the road frontage, and that's in order to deliver some of the objectives of the Clayton Road Healthy Street Scheme. I touched on this earlier, and again, apologies for the quality of the slide, but I've tried to advocate here where the Crown Trading Estate development that you've already granted permission is, and then in context, this is the Fairview application site that you're currently considering at the moment. And both applications have the same head of term, which secure this area of land to be delivered as a single road at a later date and time when both developments are up and running. So it's to secure no fence line between the two developments. So we have a good quality area of public realm serving both developments and for the benefit of the borough. And I'll take you through some site photographs. So this is looking onto Clayton Road from within the trading estate itself. So you can see the two-storey houses on the southern side of Clayton Road for context, and they are on the left-hand side of this photograph. And then this is the existing Fairview estate as viewed from the other side of the canal, and then views along Clarendon Road and Clayton Road. The application has been recommended for approval. There is a significant quantum of employment space being delivered on the application site, and the strategic aims of policies within the site allocation are considered to be delivered subject to the heads of terms and the conditions set out in the committee report. I will stop sharing this presentation and hand back to Chairman.
Thank you, Mandy. There is also an addendum on this item with some clarifications and corrections. I don't think there are any significant changes from it, but there are some corrections to tidy up the report. Who wants? Councillor Tuckwell, thank you very much. Councillor Morse to go second, right, and then Councillor Hagger. Right, Councillor Tuckwell, when you're ready.
Just wrestling with my mute button there, Chairman.
No, that's not good. Councillor Duncan, I've seen your hand, so yeah, I'll put you on my list. And I've got Councillor Hagger as well.
I think I like this scheme. I know
that's good.
We talked about its sister scheme a couple of meetings back, has been mentioned. The amenity space is above the amount required. I know we've got there quite creatively, but it does actually cover that off. Seeing a slightly higher percentage of family homes, which that normally come before us. It's always good to see a few more. The canal uplift is good, and as is the relationship with the building next door and the through shared amenity space there. So that's good. Parking for the commercial spaces. I mean, is that enough parking? Is a question. First question. And the other point is, I know in previous committees we've raised eyebrows at parking levels as low as 0.9, and yet this one's at 0.46 in an area that is already quite congested. So I'd be interested to hear sort of officers' views on that. But as I said, I think I like this scheme, and I'll be happy to support it.
Madam.
Thank you. I believe we do consider the commercial parking to be at a level that is appropriate, and also at a level that doesn't prevent a poor public realm in that central spine road. So it was a fine balance, and we are so close to the Crossrail station that there will be a travel plan to try and encourage employees to be using public transport. With regard to the car parking ratio for the residential occupiers, I appreciate that the numbers are looking like they're going lower and lower and lower. However, we have secured the contribution to the Clayton Road Healthy Street Scheme, and that's primarily to get more people out of their cars and onto the public highway, either walking to the station, cycling to the station. So there's a net gain of benefits that counter the need for on-site parking spaces. There are also other sites which are coming forward with similar parking ratios, and we are at a stage where we know that we can't really go down much further because we do maintain our need for cars within the borough, but we do have to sort of, without wanting to sound condescending, move with the times, and there is a push towards less reliance on cars. This has also come from a sort of a push from the GLA and their standards for car parking being a lot lower than ours. So it's finding that balance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for
Councillor Morse.
Mr. Chairman, I want to raise some questions about the daylight on these properties. I was looking at page 267 and I'll read out some points. It says ADF tests are reported. Of the 1,098 rooms tested, 189 do not meet the target values. I then go down further on page 267. It says with the proposed accommodation, no testing for NSC or sunlight was undertaken, and we are not sure the reason for this. Now, there's a lot of, I'm not going to start discussing the technical issues of the light test, but what I want to establish here that what we have done regard to the light, because the last part it says, however, in respect of NSL calculations, all but 2 windows passed. Can we have an update on what this part of the report is indicating? Thank you.
Mandy, perhaps you can unpick this for us.
I will be honest, Councillor Labour and Councillor Morse. I dipped into this in terms of the independent review by the consultant. So we outsourced the review of daylight sunlight reports because of the level of technical expertise required. And when I received the feedback that's been published in the committee report, one of the key questions I asked was, is there sufficient harm to warrant a reason for refusal? So primarily because of the technical details that go into the assessment, there are multiple tests, and quite often if you pass one but fail the other, it's still okay. And so that's where it got to a point where I had to, we did specifically ask the question, and it was felt that there wasn't a sufficient reason to warrant a refusal on the grounds of daylight and sunlight. So it might not be the best. You know what you're buying, I think, is one of the ways in which the consultant put it. And we are trying to find a balance between delivering homes, and some of the guidance does indicate that you will never get 100% of windows passing, but the independent consultant didn't feel that the results warranted a reason for refusal. And I can assure you that I asked that question personally because the results were somewhat confusing.
Councillor Morse, does that add any clarity to your world?
To some degree, no. I apologise, Chair.
I teed that one up for you.
I didn't know what to do with this. What I'm saying is, did they give you the NSL calculations? I mean, have you? I know the company has given you a report, but have you seen what they've done? I mean, I know I have, because I'll pick up just another small point. It's talking about properties on Clayton Road. Now, although this is to the north, I think it might be referring to some of the houses already existing. Yeah. Which is where I'm slightly more. When you're buying something, I accept what you're saying. You know what you're getting, but these houses are already there. So I'd like some clarity. You know, I would like to get some clarity.
Right.
So I believe that yes, you're right. The final paragraph on page 267 is referring to the existing dwellings on the southern side of Clayton Road. And yes, there were failures, but only all but 2 windows passed the tests. So there are 2 windows with notable change to their daylight and sunlight on Clayton Road because of the various tests that they need to go through. But that's only 2 windows out of a series of out of a number of windows that were tested on Clayton Road frontage.
There are also 8 primary windows on Neild Road. I have to say, I'm uncomfortable with the light report. I mean, I'm going to make that point. I don't think it's not grounds for refusal, but is it the grounds for deferment? I mean, I appreciate this is complicated, but I felt I had to ask the question because if I was living,
no, Councillor, I think it's a very valid question.
It is a very valid question.
And I'm not sure if the report is helping us unduly. I'm going to hold that for a minute and just see where this one goes, because there are some issues there. Councillor Hagger and then Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just look at, I mean, to be honest, I'm not a great lover of this, I have to say. It's a big beast, so to speak. Councillor Tuckwell has brought up my concern actually about the parking. I am still concerned over that and the amount of limited space we have on the parking. I understand what you're saying completely and that we're trying to encourage people, but at the same time, you know, people do need a car. So I just wanted to make that note. And I also noted that there is, hopefully everyone will be cycling at 674 cycling spaces. So I can see we are encouraging that. One of the questions I just wanted to ask, and just to really understand a bit, was about the tenure and the split and the difference. So the fact that although it doesn't fully obviously accord with the planning policy, but we've managed to get 35.8% affordable and 77 split. Could you just explain that a little bit more? I couldn't quite get that. So I just wanted a bit of explanation around that. And I think that was what you said, that we were going to look into future as well to see if we could secure any more. Is that right?
James or Mandy, who wants that one? James,
Sorry,
you want to come in anyway, so do you want to do affordable housing while you're talking?
I was struggling with my mute button, but yes, that's right. So the split should be 70% and 30%. So we have 77 and 23 the other way. So we are getting more affordable rent. It's not policy compliant, hence the reason that we have the review mechanism in the heads of terms, but this is deemed to be the maximum reasonable that can be delivered. And I think when you balance it against the fact that this site is delivering quite a high proportion or a lot more family housing than others, on balance, you'd have to say that this is a good scheme in terms of housing delivery.
Just for clarity, the housing review mechanism is introduced because sometimes between the time these things are eventually approved and eventually built, obviously the price of houses can change dramatically. And obviously if there is growth in not in developer costs, but in terms of the return on the site, it enables the authority to go back and seek an improvement. James.
Yeah, I wanted to try and help on the issue that was troubling Councillor Morse in terms of the daylight sunlight. It's not insofar as that I can add any technical additional comment to it. It's rather the point that when we deal with really big housing developments such as this, obviously we need to balance all the material planning considerations in the round. There's a huge number of planning considerations and policies that come into play. And obviously the comments on page 267, there is some negative aspects there. But the point I was going to make in terms of, if I was asked by a local resident, well, what are the positives? The landscaping scheme and the canal enhancements are actually very strong for this application. And it kind of, it didn't completely come through in Mandit's presentation, maybe because of the choice of flow. But there is actually a very strong landscaping scheme and that bit of parkland by the canal. So effectively, I think the message here is, if you're an existing resident on Clayton Road, is yes, there is some impact at certain times of day in terms of daylight sunlight. As a resident, you will have access to all the new public open space, and members will be aware that existing residents on Clayton Road have to walk quite a long distance to get to public open space. So this would obviously be right on their doorstep in effect. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Duncan, I had you held. Councillor Duncan, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you would expect, I'm very concerned about 400 residential units going into an air quality focus area, which specifically says we should not be doing any development, certainly that brings in 400 units of housing, you know, until the air quality is improved. It is so bad that it needs improving before development can take place. I realise the times we're in, and I realise the pressures that developers bring us under, but increasingly we see us getting closer and closer to margins. Air quality, sunlight to existing properties, 100 windows on existing cottages in Clayton Road, not enough affordable housing, etc., etc. I know it's difficult, but it's up to us to hold that line. And I appreciate everything that officers do, and I know the pressures that they're under by developers who want to get more and more, and that it's very difficult to reduce that. But because of the air quality, I'm afraid I will be abstaining on this one. Thank you, Chair.
I was wondering if you would, because you are consistent in your views, and have been for some time. Right. The only query we're left with is this daylight sunlight, which sounds like one of those things that we're not going to be able to refuse on, but there is some areas that are not quite working. I think that's the best I've got. Councillor Morse, do you want to come in again on that one? Or do you think we've got as far as we're going to get?
All I can say is I would like to see more detail of this, because I may be picking up a point that's not justified, but because we've not got the results here, I find it difficult. But the only thing I can say is National Policy 123 says that we should not take light into serious concern, like when because if it's effective use of land. So I will be able to abstain on the basis that of that policy. Yeah, I'm making my point. Otherwise, I would actually vote against it. But that's the rules. I'm going by the rules.
Okay, that's fair enough, Councillor Morse. I think the point would be that I think the paragraphs could have greater clarity to really try and explain what's going on would be helpful. But I suspect, like everybody else, we are caught where we are. I think that's the debate on this one. I think everyone's made their points. I didn't get a proposer and seconder, so I could. Councillor Tuckwell, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll happy to move.
And Councillor Haggard looks like she's happy to second. That's good news. Okay, I'll move to vote. Councillor Tuckwell proposed. Councillor Duncan, you indicate you're abstaining, yes?
Abstaining, Chair, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Morgan? Oh no, Councillor Morgan's out of this one, isn't he? Councillor Morse, you are abstaining?
I am abstaining, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Higgins?
I'm very difficult, actually. I'm going to abstain on this, I think. I don't like the bulk. Okay.
Okay, we've got abstentions all over the place here. Councillor Melvin? I'm
going to vote for it, but with reservations.
Okay. Councillor Haggard seconded. Councillor Sansapuri?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I've got 4 votes for, 3 abstentions, and 1 member not in this application. So I make that approved. Do you agree, Liz?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Good. Right. I could say the night's going to get easier, but I can't guarantee that tonight. Item 10, University Playing Fields, Brunel University, Kingston Lane. Part of this is a temporary permission, so just bear that in mind when we're looking at it, please. And it's already ready to go by the look of the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item number 10 is the University Playing Fields at Brunel University on Kingston Lane. So this the location plan is shown on screen. The application site is wholly within the Greenbelt, as is the entire university campus. The application proposes the temporary erection of a gym building So that is the building shown on this screen. If I could find my red dot, it might be clearer what I'm pointing at. Here we go. So this is the temporary building that is proposed as a gym building within the application site. So if we're on Kingston Lane, the vehicular access into the site, which is only for the single disabled car parking space and refuse, is off Kingston Lane. And the remainder of the application proposes the upgrading of the sports pitch facility to provide artificial grass. So this is the elevations of the application site and the elevations of the new gym building and the internal layout, which is simple, is the easiest way to put it. So that's the main entrance closest to the vehicular access on Kingston Lane. These are gates leading down to the sports pitch, and similarly further doors leading out towards the sports pitch to the north. So this is a plan showing the cross sections and the variations of the application site itself. So you'll see here that there is a path that leads from the sports building or the gym building down to the artificial sports pitch here, as well as steps that lead down because of the site gradients that lead down to the artificial pitch. And this is the vehicular access point on Kingston Lane. This is the proposed site plan again. The building in red is seeking temporary planning permission for 5 years only. Now, we obviously not always, we do have other temporary buildings applications, but because this is located within the Greenbelt, we do want to see its removal. So we're only granting 5 years permission. And then the legal agreement. So head of term number 3 on page 305 within your committee report seeks to secure that the gym structure is removed within 5 years of the date of the planning permission or sooner. This is the proposed layout of the rugby pitch. As I said, the whole of the application site is within the Greenbelt. There is significant policy support for the enhancement of the sports facilities at national and local level. The applicant has submitted a planning statement which demonstrates a need for the expansion of the university sports pitches, and I hope that's easily drawn out within the application officer within the committee report. However, it doesn't comply with all policies insofar as the gym building is not deemed to be an appropriate use within the Greenbelt. There has been an assessment undertaken of the Greenbelt policies to ensure that the development is considered to be appropriate and the proposed harm is outweighed by the benefits of the scheme. The temporary gym does not meet the MPPF exceptions and is therefore inappropriate development which requires special circumstances. The justification provided is to enhance the university's sports provision, the economic and social needs and the benefits to the wider community has also been submitted, as well as a visual impact assessment. One of the reasons that we're recommending approval is primarily because the temporary gym building is only required for a 5-year period. Now, one of the things I want to assure you is that we obviously have a lot of applications that come through for Brunel University. And one of the things that Brunel are doing are looking at a wider master plan. So the long-term intention is for this gym building to be removed and placed within a more suitable location. The artificial pitch, however, will be maintained and retained on the site. The proposal would result in a temporary loss of playing field to accommodate the gym structure, but even Sports England have noted that that's an area that will later be reinstated, and the cumulative benefits from the scheme outweigh the harm. The application is accordingly recommended for approval, and I'll take you through some photographs of the application site as is. So the levels are raised towards the boundaries of the application site. And then the existing floodlighting will be retained. There will be no change to the floodlighting as far as we have been advised, and there's a condition to that effect. I will now stop presenting and hand back to the chairman.
Thank you, Mandy. Who wants to start? Councillor Higgins and then Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it is temporary, and as long as we are very not to be extended beyond the 5-year period, I would go with Officer's recommendation. I think it's the 5G situation on the pitches now is something that most rugby clubs are using professionally. So I would go with that anyway. So I would propose that.
Well, thank you. Councillor Duncan, you were next, and then Councillor Morse.
Yes, providing it is just for 5 years, it does damage the green belt because the building totally closes off the openness of that view of the green belt as you go down Kingston Lane. So by definition, it's not something that can be overcome. But if it's just for 5 years while they sort themselves out, I don't have any objection. I'm happy to second it.
Okay, I've also got Councillor Morse and Councillor Hagger.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed that condition 9.
James, I've seen it. Yours.
The reinstatement plan, yeah?
Condition 9, yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's on page 308. I don't see a condition saying it gets returned to its original state. I mean, I know that we're requiring them to tell us how they're going to return it, but I don't see a condition. Is that an issue or not? Officers could...
Well, it says it to be returned to its original state.
No, it says here they're required to give a plan demonstrating how they return it, but not that it's actually...
Oh, they've actually got to do it, you mean? Yes, yeah. I get your point.
Now you understand.
Councillor
yes,
Moore, completely right, and the tail piece to that condition is missing, requiring implementation of the plan. So we will... thank you for picking that up.
Right, well done. Thank you for that. I've also got Councillor Hagger, is the last one on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, 2 steps, really, isn't it? It's the artificial grass pitch, which I've got no problem with, and I think that's an absolute bonus, especially rugby compliant, whatever that means, at 3G, so that's a good sign. And again, with the gym facility, I think it just says, as it says, really, as long as it's temporary. I agree with Councillor Moore, so I was going to bring that up too, that obviously we do need a recommendation in there that it's kept back to the way it was, and I'm pleased that we've got a 5-year recommendation on it to be checked. So yes, I'm happy with it too, Chair.
Okay, I think it's everybody done. The head of planning did indicate he wanted to come in. I'm not sure if it's now. Councillor Duncan, I see your hand. Can I just take James first, in case James now wants to add something?
Just a very simple clarification that I can't remember the mandate clarified it or not. This does need to go back to the Mayor of London at stage 2. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, does it say so?
304, but my understanding is because it was referred to the Mayor at stage 1, and the report clarifies that the Mayor, my reading of it, the Mayor wants to see it again at stage 2 before we...
Right, so back to the Mayor then, right, that's that one.
Yeah, it's just an important test clarification.
Yeah. Councillor Duncan, before I move this along.
As the point has been raised about the reinstatement plan and that it will not just submit a plan but actually carry it out, do we need to put a time frame?
Mandip?
I think we would have suggested a year post removal of the building. If that's okay.
Fine.
I think
that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. We need to tie it down, otherwise implementation could go on forever. Yes, exactly. Right. Okay. We are proposed. We are seconded. So, I go to the vote. Councillor Tuckwell.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan seconded. Councillor Morgan.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Higgins proposed. Councillor Melvin.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Hagger. And Councillor Sansapuri.
For, Mr. Chairman.
That's all 8 in favour, unanimous, and therefore that one's approved. Do you agree, Liz?
That's correct, Chairman, I agree.
Right. Item 11, GSK Stockley Park, Ironbridge Road, West Drayton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting.
Sure. Yes. You'll get the go at this one, are you?
Yeah. So item 11 relates to GSK Stockley Park on Ironbridge Road. This is the site location plan. So Stockley Park is to the east, Horton Road to the north, and Ironbridge Road to its west, with the Grand Union Canal to the south. This is a constraints plan. The application site is a registered park and garden, grade 2 listed. It was registered in August 2018, but this application was received in July it was registered on the 18th of August 2020, and this application was received in July, so it's a recent designation. So this is just taking you through the site location plan. This is the existing site plan. There are 3 office buildings, and this is a multi-story car park. This is an existing site section, and the buildings do go up to about 15 meters in height. The proposal the application seeks to the redevelopment of the site to provide 2 industrial units with industrial floor space and ancillary office space with car parking and landscaping works. So this is a floor plan of building 1, a roof plan of building 1, and there is a green roof above the office element, an elevation of the building, and illustrative elevations of building 1. This is the proposed building 2, which is a smaller building with a green roof above the office element, elevations, illustrative elevations, and landscape concept plan. Some sections. This plan is illustrating the improvements along the canal. So there is a substantial, as part of the application, some significant canal improvement works are proposed. This is showing the extent of Greenbelt. So currently the multi-story car park sits within the Greenbelt in its entirety, and the purple shows that only a small part of the proposed building will sit in the green belt, but it's previously developed land, so it's not inappropriate development within the green belt. Landscaping is very important in Stockley Park, and the applicant has made a lot of effort with landscaping, so this is providing a concept plan of the car park and a concept plan of car park 2, which shows trees, shows a double belt of trees around the site, and also trees incorporated with hedging within the car park. This is a pedestrian access plan which shows the pedestrian routes leading into the site itself, outlined in red, Stockley Park, and to the west there is an earlier Prologis development, and then to the east of Stockley Road is the main Stockley Park. An aerial view, and this is Iron Bridge Road. The belt of trees are being retained wherever possible, and where they're closing existing access routes into, and some are being removed to create accesses. The view, and this is a view from Horton Road. And there's the canal in the background. So it's quite densely vegetated along Stockley Road, along its eastern boundary. This is the view of Prologis Park, which is to its west, and the landscaping features provided by the same applicant to the west. And a view from the canal of the development to the west. This is the eastern part of Stockley Park, and I'm showing you these images because it shows you the sort of character of the eastern part of Stockley Park. So the application, the applicant has demonstrated that there is a clear and strong demand for industrial floor space in this location, and it's identified that this outweighs the loss of the existing floor space. The applicant has also provided marketing information stating the existing offices, they're very difficult to market, and there has been marketing done, but there weren't occupiers willing to take the existing offices on. The development is located on previously developed land, so it would not have greater impact on the openness of the green belt, and it meets the exception test in paragraph 143 of the NPPF. It is a recently designated grade 2 registered parking garden. It's considered that the loss of the existing office and their replacement with 2 large industrial units will result in less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 parking garden, but the applicant has provided significant boundary landscaping, and boundary landscaping will be retained, and the applicant does maximise the opportunities for new landscaping. So, because this part of Stockley Park is very different to the eastern part of Stockley Park, the applicant is considered to have less than substantial harm. The overall economic benefits and the creation of 450 new jobs is a benefit that weighs in favour of the proposal. And for the reasons outlined in the officer's report, it's recommended that this application is approved subject to condition and 106. There is an addendum to this item which clarifies, takes away the duplicate, and it clarifies the pedestrian access within the site. So on this, I'll hand back to the chair and take any questions if there are any. Thank you, Chair.
James, could you come in before we start the debate?
There was a point in the presentation I wanted Zanab to show to members. So can I ask Zanab, can you show members the significant green wall features that were added to the final plans? So this is going back to the elevations. There's some green walls that are added. You did mention the green roof, but the elevations include a number of green walls. So if you go back to those, I think it's just, I think it's important to members to understand, because landscaping is so important here, that it's not just that the applicant through the process has been asked to effectively ensure that lots of trees are planted, so that, you know, where our trees lost, there's new tree planting, and that there's a strong landscaping scheme. We insisted they had some green walls to the elevations, and it was part of the elevation pack, but I just think if it's just quickly highlighted by Zanab, it might help members. Yeah, that's it. It's the green sections. Members can see these are all, just to clarify, that's not cladding, they are green walls. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. That's very helpful. I've got Councillor Tuckwell, and I wasn't sure if Councillor Melbourne indicated as well. I saw your hand move, but no, you're all right. Councillor Higgins, I think, just has indicated. So, Councillor Tuckwell, I'll start with Councillor Higgins and Councillor Duncan.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the report, everybody. I think all members would recognise the Grade 2 categorisation that has just been awarded to Stockley Park. But I think we've also got to take into account the significant economic impact on the local economy, and in particular jobs. I think it's up to 650. In the report, it describes Stockley Park as a reservoir of employment for the borough, and I think this application will go some way to maintaining that. I think the office accommodation is due to be emptied by the end of the year if it's not already. So we wouldn't want to be seeing empty office space just sitting there when there is an opportunity to, really seize here. Helpful that we just saw the green wall impact, and I think that again, the design is sympathetic with the rest of Stockley Park, or this particular part of Stockley Park. So for me, I'm in favour of this. But one question I do have is, we're going to see a lot of HGV movement associated with this new facility. Is there anything we can do? And I know it's linked to sort of some major road junctions, the M4, M25 and the like, but is there anything that can be done to protect residents the other side of Stockley Park here, so that we're not seeing, drivers take shortcuts, or if there is a problem on the M4, the natural diversion is through residential streets. I'm thinking sort of Useley, and the like. So I don't know if there's anything we can do there.
Senab
Chairman.
Or Glenn?
I'll let James answer this one.
Alan, this Chairman.
Shall I go? Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. The applicant has taken their trip generation information from a site just down the road at the Prologis, and they know from surveys at that site, they forecast that the occupiers of this site would all head southbound down the Stockley Road, bound towards the M4 motorway. That's based on the existing operation that this site will be similar to. Thank you, Chairman.
I think that answers one half of the question. I think Councillor Tuckwell's question was what happens if road traffic conditions aren't running too well to the south. There's temptation to run north and then work your way round other places. I think that was your question, wasn't it, Councillor?
It was, yeah.
I thought so.
We would require a construction logistics plan.
Have we got one?
Yeah, we do have a construction logistics. We should do.
Well, actually, construction logistics will only help part of it. I think the council's referring to the servicing and delivery, isn't it?
Yeah, the servicing and delivery plan would go some way in mitigating that.
There is also a contribution towards highways capacity improvements. So it's hoped that by virtue of a package of measures to deliver the highway capacity improvements, so this is set out on page 371 of the committee report, it would hopefully alleviate some of the reasons that people might be diverted towards using. So improvements to the capacity will hopefully move people along the M4 rather than off the M4 towards diversionary routes.
Okay, James, do you want to come in?
We might have overcomplicated this. I think all we need to do is add a line to condition 11 to the effect that that part of the servicing delivery plan involves ensuring that vehicles don't stray into residential areas. Because as Alan's explained, there's no need for them to do so.
I think that probably answers the puzzle.
Happy with that.
I had Councillor Tuckwell, Councillor Higgins was next, and then Councillor Duncan.
I don't know whether...
Councillor Higgins?
Yes, hello there, Chairman. Yes, I'd just like to propose this, actually.
Oh, excellent idea. This time of night. I like that. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah.
Councillor Duncan, followed by Councillor Melvin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second it. I note in the report that it says the canal footpath is to be widened. So is this going to be a continuation of the footpath improvements that have already been made by Prologis, so that people will be able to continue to walk through along the canal side?
Yes, that's the intention.
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Excellent idea. Right. I think the last hand I saw was Councillor Melvin. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, Councillor Duncan has just said what I was going to say and also seconded it.
Okay. Well, on that basis, there are no other hands. Right. I will therefore go to the vote. Councillor Tuckwell.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan, seconded. Councillor Morgan.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Higgins proposed. Councillor Melvin.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Hagger.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Sansapuri.
For, Mr. Chairman.
That's all 8 votes in favour and that one's approved. Do you agree, Liz?
That's correct, Chairman. I agree.
Right, we get to the last one of the night. Item 12, Packet Boat Marina, Packet Boat Lane, Cowley. This is an amendment scheme.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 12 has been to Planning Committee in the past, and it was initially seeking the change of use of 25 of the existing moorings, which are contained within Packet Boat Marina. So that's this area here, from leisure moorings to residential use. Now, we did grant planning permission, and this seeks a variation to that approved consent, just to make very minor material changes. The principle of changing the use of the moorings is being retained, And this effectively just sees, I'm not going to say it cheapens the scheme. However, the original scheme was doing a significant amount of work to this public car park. It was increasing the quantum of parking from 80 odd spaces to just over 100. Now, because of funding shortfalls, which we can all appreciate at the time, the additional extras that were offered at the time of the original application and are unable to be delivered. So the changes that are sought are effectively to retain the car park as it is at the moment. So we are not reconfiguring and expanding upon it. There are also some minor changes towards cycle storage and bin storage, but primarily the essence of the permission remains. But I assume for procedural reasons they needed to make certain that the changes were acceptable, and that's the reason the application is before you. In all other respects, the applications are so minor and they don't have a material impact on the original consent, and we are recommending approval as we did with the original planning permission. And it's not to say that the wealth of additional benefits from the previous scheme, so the expansion of the car park, wouldn't have been a fantastic addition, but I think we have to accept at the time that if funding isn't there, we are at least maintaining a public car park with 83 car parking spaces. So the application is recommended for approval, and I will take any questions. The plan on screen currently just shows some of the changes to the bike store and the refuse store, which form part of this planning application. I will hand back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Madam. There's a minor change in the addendum as well.
There is. Sorry.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I think this is very minor and acceptable. I move officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I will second the officer's recommendation.
Does anybody else want to speak? No hands are moving. Good. Okay. Right. Councillor Tuckwell.
For Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan proposed. Councillor Morgan seconded. Councillor Morse.
For Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Higgins.
For Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Melvin.
For Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Haggart.
For Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Sansapuri.
For Mr. Chairman.
I make that all votes in favour, and therefore it is approved. Do you agree, Liz?
That's correct, Chairman. I agree.
Okay, that brings us to the close of tonight's meeting, and for those who've been following us on YouTube, I hope you've kept up with everything that's gone on tonight. Can I take this opportunity, as it is our last meeting of 2020, to say a very big thank you to all of the officers who've supported the Major Applications Planning Committee this year, to those in planning, legal and democratic services. I know it's not always been easy with the variance in the way we've had to work and the technology, but my thanks to all of you for your very hard work. And can I also pass on my thanks as chairman to every member of the committee, again, for working with the technology, which has not always made it easy for us to do what we would normally like to do. So hopefully somewhere in 2021, the world may return to normal. But with that, I will ask Liz to stop the recording, confirm we have, but can I just wish everybody a very happy Christmas break?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to ask everyone to remain on mute for a moment while I stop the record.